everyone, my name is Hannah. I go by Microbiologist Makes here on YouTube as well as over on Instagram, and you found my Flosstube channel. So this is a space where I talk about mostly cross-stitch, but also other hobbies that I get up to like knitting and crochet. I also throw in a little bit of my thrifting adventures and some talk about plants, just a little bit of life things sprinkled in. So if you're checking out my channel for the first time, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for returning, and I'm glad to have you all here today. So I am filming Flosstube number 5, which is my May wrap-up. And I had anticipated to film sort of the last week of the month on a consistent basis, but I forgot about Memorial Day. So we're coming to you, I'm filming right now on May 31st. So there's a possibility that this will go up before June. Not sure, but regardless, I'm excited to share everything that I've gotten up to this month with you. And yeah, let's just dive in. Let's consult my notes here. I have no previous finishes because, as the thumbnail, title, Instagram post that I made previously might suggest, I have a massive framing finish to share. And this is something I finished stitching last year in March of 2022, and I got the frame from Michaels. So they had a 70% off framing sale towards the beginning of the year, although I think they might have one going on right now. I've heard a rumor, not substantiated, but you might want to check it out. They had a 70% off cleared sale that I took advantage of. I had them cut the foam core for me, add spacers, but I didn't, and conservation glass, but I didn't have them frame. I've taken one other thing to be framed at this particular location and wasn't super happy with the results, so I'm just deciding to do it by myself, which I watched a couple tutorials but then just sort of ended up winging things. I followed most closely, I guess, Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch's tutorial, so I used the sequin pins that she linked and overall her technique. So I guess I've talked about this enough. Now I should just show it. This is Land That I Love by Teresa Kogut. I stitched this on 40 count birdcage by XG Designs using all the called for threads. I made a couple substitutions to the pattern. So there was supposed to be like a red bird here. And I just did a mirror image of the flowers and cropped out the bird. And then the bottom, there was like a dog and a cat border underneath these houses intermingled with the flowers, and I just continued, so I just drew the vines going over a little farther. Nothing against the dog or the cat, I just wanted to squeeze in more floral if I could. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I don't know if you can see if it's picking up great, but there's like a little vining detail in the frame, this outer section of the frame, that I thought tied really well to this. I think I was, well, not to brag, but I think I did a pretty good job of getting like even margins. I was very finicky, had my ruler out, and I was making sure I had the same, amount of fabric showing on every side, and yeah, it looked okay. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I'm excited to have it up this year for the first time. So yeah, then the next finish that I have is also something that I finished stitching quite a while ago. So this was in probably summer of 2022 when I finished stitching this, and it's another sort of patriotic finish. I was home this weekend visiting my parents in Minnesota. I live in Iowa, and I was visiting them for the long weekend, and I had my mom sew this into a pillow for me. So this is Silver Creek Samplers, I think it's Freedom Reigns is the name of the pattern. And I stitched this on 32 count, I believe, straw by Weeks Dye Works. I'm not sure how I remember that, but and I used most of the called for threads. I think that flower was not blue originally, and I just chose a DMC color. I'm not sure. It's coming back to me in flashes stitching this. I think I was watching Tiger King at the time, the height of 2020. Yeah, and I think I used most of the called for threads. I might have used a different red because I didn't have the called for, and we all know that you couldn't always get the thread color you wanted at that point in time, so I think I substituted that. Then I added this little star charm, so it's a navy blue to match the lettering, and yeah, I guess I could read that. So it says, "The bell proclaims on Liberty Hill, freedom reigns and always will." It was really fun to stitch, and the background is just a star print. I was going to add a trim, so I had this rope, like sort of jute, to add along the side, but it was really thin, and even though I was using a thread color that matched it, you could see every whip stitch. So I just ended up taking that off and adding the star. I think it looks good, so yeah. Those are all of my FFOs. My mom actually has one that I'd like to share. So she has a little segment here today. Maybe moving forward we'll do more of this, but when I was home, we finished I framed her finish of Memorial Day by Hands On Design. So I'll pop in a picture. She finished this like within the month, so it wasn't something that was archaic like me. She finished it this year, and she I think the called for thread is sulky, but she did a DMC conversion, and I think she stitched this on 32 count, might be 28, I think it's 32 count, a white linen. And so I pinned this for her. We found this frame at Goodwill, which was amazing that it like fit it so well. It's not a standard size, and it was like a metallic silvery, like sort of plasticky material, and I took like Rub and Buff and just antiqued it a little bit, and so you still have some of the silver poking through, and I thought it looks really cool. So I framed that for her, added my craft paper on the back, and it's all done, and it was up in time for Memorial Day, so that's a win. Yeah, I think that wraps up all finishes. I have no new starts this month, which I'm not really sure why I'm surprised about, because I didn't plan any, and I usually have to plan them. I don't really impromptu start things too much. I'm sort of indecisive, and everything has to have a reason for the most part. So I have no new starts. I do have 4 whips. Like I talked about last time, I mentioned I was going to do a new rotation where I was going to do one project a month, or one project a week. So 4 projects a month. I don't think I could do 1 project a month. And I was going to rotate them that way, so I wasn't skipping around as much. I stuck with that. So the first week went really well. And then I had some school commitments, and I didn't stitch for like 9 days. So I didn't get to the full coverage project that I was hoping to. So that was settling in. I'll put in a picture by the artist is Chris Dunn, charted by Pain Free Crafts. I started this for my birthday this year, and I was trying to do a page a month. I only made that last month. So I didn't work on it this month. I might lead with it in June then, I'm not sure. So whips, I did get to 4 this month. The first was Fruits of Plenty by Modern Folk Embroidery, and I hit the 60% mark. I'm hoping to get this finished by September of this year, and to do that I need to do 10% a month leading up to that. So I did get from 50 to 60% this month, and somehow managed to do that all within the first week of May. So it's a little bit of a blur. It was a lot of stitching. I'm not really sure how I managed to get that done, but yeah, this is stitched on 40 count Marbled Bunny by X2 Designs, and I'm using DMC 8 and 3773. So I was sort of following the page breaks, and now I'm just going wherever my heart takes me. So I got that section of the border done, which is, it's really pretty, but it's my least favorite to do those little triangles. That's where I've made most of my counting errors, is in that border that's on both sides. So yeah, hopefully in June I will get to 70%. Then my second whip is The Greenhouse of Oddities this is a Shawl by Lola CrossStitch. And the frame came out in April. I started this on Earth Day. And then the first planting came out last Friday. So I did manage to finish the frame, which is a little under 7,000 stitches. I managed to finish that like the day before the first planting. And I'll put in a picture of what things are looking like now after, you know, the fully stitched releases. And oops, my needle just popped out. This is where I'm at. So I'm not quite through with the first planting. So this is the Desert Dwellers release. So there's cactus, I forget what the name of the tree is, and then a little owl perched up on top of the cactus. You can kind of see my brown stitches there coming in. And the reason why I'm not done with this is I had 2 DMC colors of green that I thought I had purchased, but I guess I don't, and maybe I pilfered them for other projects, I'm not sure, but that's why I'm not done with the first planting. I have like 500 stitches left, I think, but I think I could finish it by this coming Friday when the next release will come out. I think that's doable. I'd really like to have this, you know, stay up to date, because I think the first time that I don't stay caught up, it's just going to be over from then on out. So I'd like to stay caught up. Right, so the next WIP I worked on, so this was after the period of time when I fell off with stitching. So I had a week and a half of no stitching whatsoever. I picked up then, just as an easier project that I wanted to get more stitches in, this is my Market new start. It was released by Hello from Liz Mathews. It's called Gifts from My Garden. And I started this, after Market. And I'm working on 36 count needle and flax Steinbeck. I'm using the called for DMCs 2/2. That is also, I forgot to mention, I'm doing 36 count anthracite by XG Designs for Greenhouse of Oddities, called for DMC 2/2. And this is where I'm at. I didn't get much done. I think I got, so those blue flowers put in. Everything else was had been done previously. And I'm leaving, which might not be a good idea, and it'll probably come back to bite me, but I'm leaving the blue, or that tealy, I think it's DMC 524, oval fill-in, sorry about the glare, for last. I thought I probably wouldn't make as many counting errors if I had the flowers in first and then filled in the background. It's probably going to be a lot when I get to that point, and I'm not going to be a fan, but yeah, trying to avoid counting errors. So that's what that one's looking like. And my last WIP was sort of a wild card. It wasn't on my radar that I was going to work on it anytime soon, but it was Memorial Day, so I pulled out something patriotic. This is, I'll have to put in a picture because I have the PDF. This is Willow Hill Samplings, Land of the Free. I'm stitching this on 40 count, picture this plus sand, so it feels more like 46. And I'm using the called for threads, although some of them are gentle arts, and I find that I have the most variation between dye lots with gentle arts. So like the grass is called for, like in the cover picture, it looks green, but the chamomile thread that I have by Gentle Arts is yellow. And I know grass in July, here anyway, is yellow, but that's not what I'm looking for, not the look I'm going for. So I think I'm gonna have to make some substitutions, but that's why I have plenty of color and cotton. So yeah, I had, leading up to this point, I had like the border and the 2 little people. So I added the flag, the bird, and the majority of the house. I think I had part of the roof line and the windows done. So I'm at the 25% mark now, which I think was good progress. It was just sitting there less than 10% done I think I started this in 2021, so I'll take it. I'm not sure if I'm going to bring that out again yet this summer, or if I'll just, you know, let it chill like that for a while. Yeah, I think, yeah, I guess I'll talk about that in plans, what I'm thinking. But the rest of my cross-stitch related content, so I have haul, and lots of crinkling going on here, sorry. I have my Coloring Cotton May Thread Club. So I'm in the primitive neutral. We got lots of red, blue, white, and then a green. So that's always good to add to stash. I'm trying to think like how much longer I actually want to stay in the club. I use the thread. I like doing color conversions, but I don't know. It is adding up to be a lot of thread that I'm having to store, so from month to month. So, and then I got my mom. I had an order from 123 as part of her Mother's Day gift. So I threw in this chart that I should probably take it out of the plastic, that I've been eyeing for a while. Leanne Small Town Stitches is working on this right now, and she'd been showing her progress, and so I just bit the bullet and went for it. And that is Prairie Life Sampler by Heartstrings Samplery. So it's Little House on the Prairie themed, and I grew up on the books, on the TV show. I've been to several of the locations, so I've been to the birthplace of Laura Ingalls Wilder in Pepin, Wisconsin, several times, and then the nearest to me is the Burr Oak, Iowa, where they had the Ingalls family lived for a time. So I've been there. So yeah, just a little kind of a nostalgic piece for me, and I don't have plans to start it. I don't know when I'll get to it, but just thought I'd have it as an option. Who knows? Right, so that's most of the cross-stitch content I have to share. I will talk about plans at the very end if you want to skip forward to that. But if you're not interested in talking about yarn or my thrifting, yeah, feel free to jump off and you won't miss anything there. So in terms of crochet, I did start and finish one sweater, and it's a short sleeve sweater. It's nothing, don't be too impressed. But I saw this, it's called the Poppy Pullover by Evelyn and Peter, and I used the called for yarn, which is a 24/7 cotton DK weight by Line Brand in the color Mocha. And so it's a really affordable option. I ended up not using the amount of skeins that were recommended for my size, so I actually have one left over. I'm not sure if my gauge was a little all over the place, so I ended up using a smaller size hook. The look goes for a larger hook with the thin weight yarn to have like that sort of mesh appearance in the stitches, but my gauge was all over the place, so I sized down a hook and then ended up being a little smaller than the called for. I mean, it's supposed to be like an oversized tee, so now it just fits me. I don't know. Sometimes you just take what you can get, and I wasn't feeling like ripping it out and troubleshooting this, so I will put in a finished picture of like me wearing it after I hold this up, because it's a little challenging to show in the camera. But yeah, it has a split hem, so you actually don't even have to seam up the full length of the sweater, which is nice. There's a V-neck, and then the little cuff sleeve that you sew down. So it's made in panels. You have the front panel, the back panel, and then the two sleeves, and then you assemble at the end, which I don't like sewing. I don't like that method of construction. I kind of like raglan sweaters where you're just making everything in like a tube and then adding the sleeves on, like crocheting them on or knitting them on to the body of the sweater. So it cuts down on the sewing, but so it's like a little finicky to figure out like lining up the seams and making them look nice. But I think I did an okay job, and yeah, I'll put in a picture of me wearing it here while I'm talking, or maybe I've already done that. I don't know. So then the other crochet project I had was a baby blanket, and this is actually the first time I've ever had the occasion to do a baby blanket. One of my close friends is having a baby boy in July, and she lives a distance from me, so I had to ship this. And I use the DaisyFarmCrafts. It's a free pattern It's called the Gingham baby blanket. There's a couple different color variations. I went with a green colorway, so I had like a Kelly green and then like a pale like frosted sage, I think was the color. It's just baby yarn from a box store, and then a white. And I followed the pattern for like the main body of the pattern, and then the border I deviated a little bit. There was supposed to be like a single crochet ribbing all the way around, which would have taken forever. So I did a front post, back post, double crochet alternating for the ribbing. Yeah, and I hope that'll get a lot of use. And yeah, I was excited to be able to make a baby blanket for the first time. It's the first time anyone close to me has been expecting. So yeah, that was exciting. And then in terms of knitting, I have one knitting whip going at the moment, and I'd like to keep it that way. I've been working on the Pressed Flowers shawl by Christoffers. You may have heard Lauren, the New Hampshire stitcher, talk about this as well. We were having a little some crisis conversations about this pattern. So there's like the main body of the shawl you have to read from a chart versus written out instructions, which is the first time either of us had tried to do that. And it is a learning curve. Like, I was not sure I was going to be successful. Lauren linked me to some YouTube tutorials, which I'm very grateful for, and I wouldn't have been able to figure it out if it wasn't for that. And I've gotten through, I guess I've gotten over the biggest hurdle, and I've gotten through a couple repeats of the pattern. I have 2 more to go, but you're increasing every other row by 4 stitches, so it gets to be pretty wide pretty fast. So it's a little hard to show here because it's all bunched up on my needles, but yeah, I have 2 of the 4 repeats of the main pattern done, and then you add a border. So I have a ways to go yet, but it's really fun. The slip stitch pattern, I think it's called mosaic knitting. It's a lot of fun. And there's the center seam. I mean, yeah, it's just a mirror image. I don't know why I'm bothering to show it, but yeah. I'm using Baracco Vintage DK and like a gold color and then an off-white. Oh, and I have to show off my knitting needle, the point guards. They're little mushrooms. So yeah, that's going along pretty well. I've gotten better about fixing knitting mistakes, like being able to work back and sort those out. So that's always been my hang up with knitting. But yeah, I never thought I'd get to a point in this pattern where it would be like sort of self-explanatory and I wouldn't have to be looking at the chart every 5 seconds. Somebody wrote that in their Ravelry review, that it becomes like easy to memorize, and I was like, yeah, right. But it has gotten a lot easier. So I'm glad I stuck with it. And yeah, the rows are taking quite a while to finish now, but I'm still having fun. So I guess this kind of also fits in with haul, but when I was home for the weekend, there's a local yarn store about 30 minutes from where I grew up, and they have some indie dyers as well as just established lines, and that they sell there. So I wanted to stop by, and I picked out yarn for my next project, which is going to be the Glacier Cowl, I believe it's called. I'll have to put in a picture in the designer information. I'm not quite remembering, but it's a colorwork cowl, which will be the first time I've done colorwork like that, like straight knitting. That's mosaic. So you're slipping the other color, you're only working with one at a time. This will be the first time I'm working with both colors at a time. So I'm going to use this as like the pattern, like the main pattern color. So that just, yeah, it'll make more sense as I talk about it, hopefully. This is like an off gray, and it calls for fingering weight yarn, this pattern does. So I got that. It's a 80-20 merino nylon blend, and it's this is part of the hand dyed from that particular location. So indie dyer, that's what I'm trying to say. It's in the color Driftwood. Sorry, I'm not good at talking about my knitting. I guess it comes with experience, but yeah, it's like a grayish off-white color. And then the main body of the background color of the cowl, it's going to be in this colorway, which is Madelinetosh unicorn tails in the color Dust Bowl. It's really purple, really pretty purple with a little bit of gray mixed in. So I thought that would look really nice together. And I'm excited to get to work on that. I'm having to force myself to hold off, but also not really, because I'd have to watch some tutorials on how to do color work like that. So that is sort of preventing me from jumping in. If I already was experienced in that, I think I would have started, but yeah, it's helping me to hold off. Okay, and then plans. I think my only for sure plans is I want to participate in Cross Stitch Camp, which is hosted by Sherry, Colorado Cross Stitcher. This went on, it's been going on for a couple years now, I think. I participated 1 month of the summer last year. So it goes on for June, July, and August. There's a different theme for each month, and you're supposed to start up and theoretically finish a project that fits within that theme. So I think I'm going to participate for June at least, and that theme is to stitch something with a bird. So I have this pattern in mind by MamaWitchCrossStitch. It's just called the Goose pattern, I believe. I'll have the Etsy link in the description box. But I think I'm going to start it. It calls for DMC. I have a little scrap piece of linen that I dyed in like a black gray color. And I think I'm going to start that. So that would be tomorrow. So I should get organized. I'd be starting that. And yeah, go visit Sherry, Colorado Cross Stitcher to get all the details. She does a much better job explaining things. So I'm excited for that. I think I would like to continue doing my 1 project a week for 4 projects a month. Either that or do like a 5x5, which I've heard others talking about. I'm not sure who sort of spearheaded that. If it was maybe Carol Saltbox Stitcher. But so doing 5 projects a month each for 5 days. That I got cut off. My iPhone storage was full. But I think I was talking about 5x5 and how I might be implementing that in the month of June to try it out. So it'll be another, we'll see what happens, but that's what I'm intending for now. And I do have some thrifting to talk about today. So if you're interested in that, stick around. It's estate sale season, so there's an estate sale company that operates in my town and then surrounding areas, and they have an estate sale, at least 1, sometimes 2, every weekend. And so I went to my first of the season a couple weeks ago, and they didn't have too much in the house, but outside there was quite a bit. And I walk up this driveway, and there are 2 of these, I don't know if you'd call them buggies, horse carriages, like, I don't know, just 2 of them just chilling there, which I thought was interesting. You don't see that every day, so I snapped a picture to share. Then some other things I saw there and didn't buy. There was this really cute little, it's like a serving bowl with an orange in the center. I like fruit-themed dishware, I guess. It was cute. And then a needle art Vogue book, which I was intending to look through. But, you know, people are kind of ruthless in estate sales. Like, they are not afraid to push you aside. So I was getting crowded out of the room and I didn't get a chance to look at it. I did pick up from that estate sale, though. I found one of these swinging frames. I don't know what else to call them. There's quite a bit of glare there. Somebody's grandma's in there. I don't know. And they're kind of hard to find, but they come up, well, in antique stores anyway, they'll be listed for a much higher price than what you would find at an estate sale. So I collect these. Haven't had yet to use them for cross stitch purposes, but I have the intention. So and then from that, a different thrifting day, I found this frame at like a restore, Habitat for Humanity. And I'm always on the lookout for oval frames. They're harder to find. And I'm not crazy about this paint job. I kind of just slapped it on there. So I think I would distress it, or maybe do the same thing like I did with my mom's piece. And I'm envisioning this maybe for gifts in my garden, although I'm not sure if it is big enough. That's that floral Liz Mathews piece that I showed. Or maybe the new start from MamaWitchCrossStitch for cross-stitch camp. I'm not sure, but I can use it for something, so pick that up. I went to an antique store near me. One of my favorites is having its 20th anniversary sale, so they did like 20% off. I snapped some pictures of these granny square blankets that I'll roll across the screen. I always like looking at those. Then there was one booth that had like non-reproduction, but like authentic clothing from all different eras. There's a lot of 40s, 50s style dresses. But I also found amidst those a poncho. It was crocheted, and then they appliqued these crochet flowers on it. I thought it was really cute. So I took a picture of that to share too. I didn't buy it, but I also stumbled across these hair dryers, and I did confirm with someone of a generation older than mine that that's what they are. I mean, I was pretty confident, but you know, better double check. And I thought they were really cute, and like the pastel colors, you know what decade they're from. So I thought those were interesting to share. And then I came across this puff quilt that I thought was really cute too. I've always wanted to make one of those doing with crochet. So there's a free pattern if you just Google crochet puff quilt. It's really cute. You make these little pockets, stuff them with polyfill, sew them together. One, it would be an insane amount of work, but also it's not super practical. But then does it really need to be practical? I don't know. I've always had that in the back of my mind to like use up scrap yarn that I would do that, but who knows? So anyway, throwing that in here. And then another thing I did buy was this thermos that is actually, I'm surprised I found it. My parents were shopping with me at the time. They thought I was crazy for buying it. It's from the 70s, so it's I think Peacock something brand. They're actually pretty rare. There's a listing right now. If you Google like yellow coffee carafe 70s floral, it'll come up, and it's listed on Etsy for like $275. I don't think that's a fair price. There's quite a few for less than that, but regardless, I got it for $6, so I was pretty happy about that. It's like not something I would ever use. I have like a vintage thermos collection that I put up above my cabinets, and it goes well up there, but it does hold 2.5 liters, which is an excessive amount of coffee if you ask me. I don't drink coffee, but I don't know. That seems a little extreme. I don't know if people were doing okay in the 70s or what, but just kidding. I cleaned it up. It was a little rusty, and I opened it, and there were like 5 dead ladybugs inside, so it's not something I would consider using anyway, but anyway. And then the other thing I found was Mr. Paul Simon, one of my favorite records from him. I mean, it has me and Julio down by the schoolyard on it, so obviously. And those are all of my finds for this month. I'm sort of fidgeting because my legs are falling asleep. Sitting here cross-legged on the floor. Life stuff, not too much going on. I planted an herb garden. I've done this for a couple years. My dad made me a sort of tiered planter for it, and I just have that on my apartment balcony. I've done that for a couple years. This year I've run into some problems. So I usually do like rosemary, thyme, sage, all that. I've branched out this year to do some different varieties. So there's a greenhouse local to me that I tried. It has like cinnamon basil, there's purple sage, and spicy and hot oregano. So we'll see. I tried those. I was really excited. I also had a little pepper, like mini pepper, bell pepper plant out on a separate planter, of course. And I was really excited about that. I have pictures. I was happy that it was nice outside to do this again. I did it last year, and I've been in this apartment for 2 years now, so I've never had problems. And the birds let me have my nice things for like 3 days, and then I woke up one morning and they had ripped every single leaf off the bell pepper plant. Like, it wasn't going to come back in time to grow anything. And then they snipped a bunch of the herbs. Like, I mean, they'll come back. They seem to grow even better after you prune them. But yeah, I was mad. I'm usually like, in the past, I've been indifferent to birds. And then I've become like, as I'm getting older, I notice like I'm appreciating birds more. But not that week. That week I was mad. Yeah, I was blaming the sparrows because they're nesting right underneath my balcony, but I think they're called purple finches. I caught one in the act. So I knew I was blaming the wrong species there. So I had to buy like a netting to put over it. So it kind of ruins my aesthetic there. And I'm hoping I can take that off after they're done with their crazy like nesting period. But yeah, the birds and I weren't friends. It was a little bit of a war going on. And they have left the netting alone. So far so good. The other like random little thing I want to throw in here is, so I was home for Memorial Day, like I've said about a million times now. And I made this pasta salad that I thought was worth sharing. Maybe someone else would like it too. I called it my like adult pasta salad because it had all the foods that I would have avoided as a child and still like deep down don't really enjoy, but I forced myself to branch out. And so there was tortellini and then like cherry tomatoes, which were, I'm not a tomato person, and then avocado, which is also I was a little hesitant about. And then, so there was corn, like red onions, black beans. You make this vinaigrette with rice vinegar, olive oil, some seasoning, lime juice. It was really, really good. So I found that off of TikTok, and I will put it in the description if you are interested in checking it out. All right, that's all I have to share. Thanks for joining me again, and I hope from now until I come back, end of June, you have a great month and get some time in with your hobbies and what makes you happy. Take care. Bye.